And I started out at 75 cents an hour. And the minimum wage went up to $1 an hour. And I was on the job with people working under me. And I, wanted to make more money, and they're making $1 an hour. I'm making $1 an hour, and the foreman, essentially, or the supervisor on the job. So I asked the boss for a raise. Gave me a 10-cent raise, $1.10, to make me so that I would have more than those working for me. So after 3 years working there, 50 hours a week. I worked 9 hours a day and 5 hours on Saturday, so it was 50 hours a week. I saw that's the only way it made any money was with the overtime.
Yeah.
Then I saw it wasn't going anywhere, so I applied for a job at Transitron. I saw an ad in the paper for learn to grow crystals.
Okay.
So they started me there at $1.35 an hour.
Oh, wow.
And then they would give me 10-cent raise every so many months until you were up to $2 and something an hour.
Wow.
So I told the guy where I was, and he said he'd give me $1.45 if I'd stay, because by then I was making like $1.15 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So he said he'd give me $1.45 if I would stay, and I said no, because that would be the last raise I'd see for the next 5 years. And I can get up to $2.15 at this other place, and it has potential for making even more. Mm-hmm. So when I was leaving, packing up and leaving, the guys that worked there said, "What did he say to you?" And I said he offered me $1.45 an hour if I'd stay. And these guys were there for like 5 years or so, and they were top mechanics. That's all I'm getting. So they went storming in the office, upset. But anyways, that's what I did. I went to Crystal Grove.
So that's when you went to learn crystal growing.
To Transitron.
Okay.
And then I became one of the best crystal growers they had, and then I transferred into research from there, and I grew crystals for research scientists and stuff.
So when did you get married? When you were at Transitron?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was in 1958, so I was still at Transitron, and she was working at Transitron also.
Okay, she worked at Transitron
That was
too.
when Kennedy came through.
Okay, so when you first got married, well, you asked the question, where'd they live?
Oh, what was your wedding like? Did you have like a big wedding?
Next door we got married.
Yeah.
Got married at the church in Cranston. And it was a, good-sized wedding, I guess. Only problem is my parents were late. And her father wanted to go on with it.
Without them
there. And I said, no way, Jose. I said, it's the only time I'm getting married. If they're not here, I'm not going on. So poor Felicia had to play the songs over and over. She had timed everything perfect. Yeah. The car had pulled up and everything, and everything was ready. And I said, nope. So how late were they?
15 minutes.
15 minutes late.
Well, not too bad.
Well, I was a little mad at her parents because they didn't invite them for the supper.
They didn't go to the rehearsal dinner?
No.
They weren't invited.
Did they not like you?
That's what I was wondering. But anyways, which they would have been in town, see?
Right, yeah.
And there would have been no problem.
So they had to drive all the way from Massachusetts for the wedding. Okay.
Yeah, down Route 1, there was no 95 then or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyhow, then after the wedding, then we had the reception on the patio out here. And in the porch area that faces the patio is where our table was set up.
The head table.
Everything. So we were in there and everything. And then we went from there to New York, Lake George.
Okay.
And spent a week there.
Pre-honeymoon.
On our honeymoon, yeah.
Where was your first house?
My first house, well, when we first got married, we had an apartment in Waltham. Wakefield, and we couldn't walk to work.
Really? I didn't know Transitron was that close.
It was on Albion Street. And that's where you saw Kennedy come by when we could look out our window and see him coming by in the car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, when he was
Campaigning?
campaigning, yeah.
It was a parade.
You didn't throw anything at him, though, right?
No. It was a parade.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was a parade,
wow.
yeah.
4th of July
4th
or
of July,
something,
for
or
some
Memorial Day.
parade or whatever. Yeah, because we got, well, it couldn't have been on Memorial Day because we got married in June, so it had to be 4th of July.
Right.
And we lived there for how long?
Till September.
Till September, and then we got a house in Tewksbury.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a story in itself, in that when we went to get the house in Tewksbury, we saw an ad in the paper and everything, and it was a foreclosure. Someone was losing it, and they had GI Bill, and they were auctioning it off if it didn't get sold and everything. And
Oh.
I had this real estate agent named Riley, who was a real winner. And we wanted to buy this house and so forth and so on. So we gave a down payment to buy it. She had saved money and I had saved money before we were married. So we had some money for a down
Each
payment.
had $1,000.
So anyways, when we went to buy the house, didn't go through in time. It was foreclosed, and they put it up for
Oh, so it was
auction.
up for auction.
And
Oh,
they
wow.
put it up for auction. They had a flag on the thing and everything. And then Mr. Riley, I asked for my money back, and Mr. Riley said, "Oh, you can't get it back. You lost it for trying to make the sale, and that's the way
Who
it
got the
goes."
money?
He would. And I says, "I don't think so." So I got a lawyer,
Okay.
and the lawyer called up Mr. Riley. And Mr. Riley thought it was me calling him up, making him
Pretending to
believe
be a
I was a
lawyer.
lawyer. And he says, "No, this is not Mr. Stoner pretending to be a lawyer. This is his lawyer, so-and-so and so-and-so, and I'm
Yeah.
going to serve you with a whatever
To get the money back, yeah.
to get the money back." And so Riley then coughed up the money. But fortunately, the lawyer said, "Do you still want to buy the house?" It didn't get sold at the auction. I says,
wow.
"Yeah." And they says, "Okay, you can get it through the Veterans Administration, and you can get a very low interest rate
Which was 5.25%.
back
Wow.
then, 5.25%." So we did that, and we got the house.
Wow. So that was a house that someone who had been in the service bought, and then it fell through. I mean,
Someone had bought it in the service,
In the service,
and then
okay.
somehow they couldn't make the payments
Okay.
and stuff. And
so you got to take over the mortgage
Yeah.
that they already had, because you weren't a veteran.
no, I
Yeah.
wasn't a
Yeah.
veteran, but
Yeah.
I was able to get, I don't know if I took over their mortgage or what it was, but
Yeah.
we were able to get the house at a low
Wow.
interest rate and get it through that. So we decided to go with it. So that worked out good. Yeah, and it was tough when we first bought the house, but
The house cost $12,000.
$12,000.
12,300, something like that. But anyways, what I was making at Transitron, it was really tight. But as you get raises and stuff, it got
Okay,
easier and
especially
easier
since you're getting raises every so often, yeah.
it get easier and easier to pay for. But after 5.5 years at Transitron, the company was in trouble, and they started laying off people, and I ended up getting laid off.
Oh, okay.
And it was on near Labor Day weekend or something. And so I saw an ad in the papers, and I looked at different places on 128, and then I applied for a bunch of different jobs on 128, and Tyco called me and offered me a job day after. They said they were having a meeting that night. So on a Monday I went there. They said they're having a meeting that night to see if they wanted someone of my higher status of a technician or
Okay.
if they wanted someone lower status. So then they decided to hire me. So that was my career.
Now, was, I was going to say, I have a question about it. Oh, when you got laid off, how many kids did you have then?
It was the
None.
week before Rob was born.
Oh, before Rob was born. Okay, because you had started working there.
Yeah, it was 1962 is when I started working at Tyco. Started
Okay,
there at
so you
62
did have
in
kids. You
September.
had-
So we
you
had
Me and
You
Gail.
You and Gail.
Okay,
Yeah.
you had
and
2
Gail.
kids then. Okay.
Yeah.
But you never had to collect
No,
unemployment or
because I
anything.
wasn't out that long.
Okay,
I was very fortunate.
that's good.
Because back then there was a lot of jobs around.
Mm-hmm.
I applied. They offered me a job, and then afterwards, other places called me that I applied and offered me jobs too.
Oh wow.
But I took that. I had already taken
Right.
the Transitron. So
Okay, what?
into Tewksbury,
Right.
1959, and in 1966, I think we moved down here.
Okay, why did you decide to move?
Why did we move? Because her father offered us a house next door that Gail and Graham live in.
Okay, but did you not like the
It
house
must-
you were in before?
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I don't have to do
you
anything.
don't.
Okay. Did you not have to? Did you not like the Tewksbury house? Like, why would you want to move out of the Tewksbury house to a different house, since you already had a house?
It was bigger.
A bigger. Okay, because by then
Had a
you had
little
4
more room.
kids. You had 4
Had a little
kids
more
then.
room. Plus, it was close to her folks,
Okay.
and it was on the water here.
And it
Well,
was
that's
free.
true.
Can't knock that. You know.
Right. That's true. And it was free. So
And
then,
it was,
if you
and
sold
it was
your
free.
if
They
you-
gave it to us,
Okay.
and what we got selling the other house, we used to lift the house up
Okay.
and put a cellar under it, and
Mhm.
then put the house back down again.
Okay.
So her father was very nice to us that way. That
Mhm.
he gave us essentially the house.
Mhm.
And I said, we'll try it out for 5 years or so, see how it works out. And
You're
30
still
years
here.
later, 40 years later, we're still here, so.
But then you had to drive from there all the way
Well, first I
Waltham.
drove just to
Waltham.
to
Waltham,
Waltham, right?
and that was about, 55 miles. And depending, take an hour or a little less. But
Mhm.
then in 1984, the company moved to Billerica.
Mm.
And then I was going further.
Yeah.
And that's when I started staying at my mother's house and staying at your house and
Mhm.
staying at Lisa's, doing
Yeah.
different things to not drive as far all the time.
Yeah. Now did you ever carpool to like cut costs to?
I carpooled once. Somebody that lived in Warwick got a job at
Mm-hmm.
Tyco, and so he was there for a while as a
Mhm.
technician, but didn't last long.
Okay.
But I carpooled with him for a while. But there's not many people that have been working at Tyco in Waltham, right?
No, that's true. It was funny though when I lived in when I worked in Norwood, and I lived here. We carpooled with like 3 or 4 people, so I only had to drive like once
Yeah.
every week, once a week.
Yeah.
I was surprised that there were that many people who lived in Rhode Island who worked there.
But I was there in the blizzard of
78.
'78. And I made it all the way to Warwick
Mhm.
at the mall and spent the night at the mall because I got stuck. But I at least made it that far.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so anyhow.
What kind of like hobby did you have as an adult? Like,
Hobbies:
yeah.
Fishing,
fishing.
hunting.
I hunted when we were first married. I hunted a lot when we lived in Tewksbury and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'd be trying to make us eat them.
But Mickey, what?
Duck.
But pheasant was good.
I didn't like
Tastes like
anything.
chicken. And rabbit. But anyways, I did hunt. But then I played tennis, cross country skied. I did fish a lot. We had a boat,
You
Down
golfed
here.
too.
and I golfed. Yeah, that when we were first married, I golfed more.
You were in a
Because
softball.
they had a league at both Transitron and Tyco,
Mm-hmm.
and golfed in that league. I played 9 holes after work.
Yeah, because I remember you would come
Yeah.
home from work late, and
Yeah.
I remember one time. You don't want me to tell the story, I'm sure. Okay, I won't tell the story. No, I was gonna say I remember this one time where I would tell you to wake me up to say goodnight to me because you would come home after I was already in bed,
Oh.
and so I remember you guys woke me up, and I thought you were just waking me up to say goodnight, so I was like, okay, good night, and you made me get in the car, and we went to the hospital, because apparently somebody was being born.
So it wasn't what you
No,
thought.
no, it wasn't what I thought. I thought I was just going to say, okay, yeah, you woke me up, good night, and
Must have been Rob, huh?
it was either Rob or
It was either
maybe
Rob or
Lisa.
Lisa, yeah.
Yeah. But I remember sitting in the hospital, like in this corridor on this bench.
Did you have a TV or like other kind of technology?
Did we have a TV? Yeah, we had a small
Black and white.
TV with
Black and
rabbit
white.
ears.
Black and white.
Black and
Black
white.
and white, yeah.
It was a big deal. We'd get to go next door to my grandparents' house and watch Disney on the color TV where it had that peacock that would come up.
Yes. Yeah, we had black and white with rabbit ears. But, hey.
I would ask questions about who was like the main disciplinarian in the family and,
Oh, yeah.
and how did they raise the kids and
Who was the
was
main
it different? Was it
disciplinarian?
different?
I guess you would say I was, right?
Mm.
Main disciplinarian.
Mhm.
I was the grouch. Oscar the Grouch.
And like were there
How-
differences? Go ahead.
Or like, how did you discipline?
How do we discipline? The racking. No. How do we discipline?
You used
Depend
spanking.
what it was. They were spankings, depending on what it
Mhm.
was. Or go to your room type of thing, that type of thing.
They
But,
were older.
Or
they
you
grounded.
couldn't go out with your friends
Yeah.
when you wanted
We
and
get
things
grounded,
like that. Grounded type of thing.
And how was that different from when you were raised? Was it like more or less the same, or?
It was similar. I think there was more capital punishment when I was raised because in school the teachers actually
hmm
were able to give you a whap on the side of the head, without getting
Yeah,
in trouble.
yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, nobody thought anything of it. No one said, I'm going to sue or anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was normal.
Your house, your mother was the disciplinarian, though.
Yeah, my house, my mother was a disciplinarian, and she used to use a ping pong paddle or a hairbrush. I think she even broke a ping pong paddle on me.
Did you watch TV a lot, or was there any TV programs that you guys liked, or?
Did we watch a lot? I mean,
I Love Lucy.
yeah, I Love Lucy and
Get smart.
Get Smart, that type of thing. Yeah,
Gunsmoke.
Gunsmoke, some of the old shows.
Bonanza.
Well, I still like them now.
Yes.
I mean, seriously.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because some of the shows now, it's too much violence.
Yeah. Do you want me to look?
One thing that's changed a lot is childbirth. I don't know if they go into that at all.
Oh,
That's
childbirth.
true. Yeah. Yeah. We could.
I didn't go in.
Fathers would
Yeah.
never, they didn't even
They
stay in
weren't
the hospital.
allowed in when the mother was in labor or anything. I would go home and they would call me and I would come back. You didn't hang around
Yeah.
and wait.
Mm-hmm.
At least I didn't.
Yeah. When I was born.
But I mean, I had kids, so
Yeah,
I mean, what
right,
am I
yeah.
going to do?
Well, when I was born, I had that medical issue too.
Mm.
Yeah, when she was only 2 days old, she had her kidney operated on. End of
But
the
even
week,
with
it was
the
all
first child,
healed.
You weren't there.
Huh?
So you weren't even there for the birth of me, though.
No.
No.
He was home.
Okay.
No.
And
that's
also, you weren't even basically there for the birth of me.
I don't remember it at all.
Yeah.
No, I was totally unconscious.
So nobody was really there for my birth, besides the doctor, apparently. Now, what about health care, like for insurance purposes? Like,
Okay, when I
for
went-
when I had to have the operation, was it covered by your insurance?
It was all covered.
It was all covered, okay.
Yeah. And when I went to Tycho from Transitron, I insurance switched a while, and I had to wait like 3 months before it was fully in effect again.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Blue Cross Blue Shield back then that I had, but it was pretty good.
Okay. I was going to say, this one he was talking about was the economic picture. He talked about how there were a lot of jobs. Was there ever a time when there was like a recession or anything?
Yeah, when Jimmy Carter was president,
Mm-hmm.
there were no raises for a whole year or so, because he froze in the economy then.
Okay.
You know, told nobody to give raises to anyone.
So he told
our
the-
whole company didn't give raises
So he told
to
the
anyone.
the whole country that no one could get a raise?
Yep.
Wow.
So I didn't get a raise for a whole year, and then after that, I did get a raise.
Okay.
You know, when they lifted the thing,
Mm-hmm.
they made up for what we didn't get and everything. And that company was really good to me in that if they would compare our wages to people in the industry, how much they were making, and they would adjust ours. So
Oh, that's nice.
we didn't want to be the bottom, we didn't want to be the
Mhm.
top, but to the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So they adjusted our raises, our salaries. So it was good. So I would get a raise, plus I would get a adjustment for that.
Mm-hmm. That was good. No, what about what? Go ahead.
I know you can.
I was going to say, when he said he grew crystals, what did they use these crystals for? I mean,
Okay, they were for semiconductors.
okay.
They were NPN crystals that I was growing, negative, positive, negative, and they made diodes and transistors and stuff.
That went
for
in
them.
like radios and televisions and stuff?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
just back when they were coming out with transistors and stuff, and there was the new technology and science and everything, and IBM had come up with inventing transistors and stuff. And so at Transitron, I was growing the crystals for that, because
Okay.
one of the Bacala brothers that owned Transitron, he had worked at IBM.
Okay.
I'm not IBM, but Bell Labs. I'm sorry, Bell Labs, and he then opened his own company,
Mhm.
trying to use the techniques that they come up with and everything. So, but unfortunately, I was only one that was able to grow certain crystals,
Wow.
and they could make great transistors and stuff from them, make good devices, but no one else,
No one else in the company could do it?
none of the other crystal growers had the knack of being able to do it, so they had to come up with a new way of doing it.
Oh, wow.
So they came up with a sandwich device type of thing, where they put the things together and they put it in an oven and then fired it or
Oh, they
something.
smushed them, joined
But,
together that
and
way.
then they made it that way. But I was the only one that, and they sent scientists to look at
I was
what
gonna
I
say,
was
couldn't you
doing,
teach
and they
them how to
were
do it?
writing down every single thing I did. Okay, change this. He did temperature there. He did increase the speed. You know. But nobody else could.
You couldn't teach them how to do it? Wow.
And because when you grew the crystal a certain amount, and then when you wanted to make it the P junction, you had this quartz tube that had dopant in it,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to then a little magnet with a metal piece, and you moved the magnet, and then you turned on the magnet, and it would bang the dopant and drop it into the melt, and then it would melt,
Mm-hmm.
and make a bright junction there.
Okay.
And then you would grow some more N-type on top of that, but it
Mhm.
was a lower resistivity N, so it was N at the top, P, and a bright junction, and then lower resistivity N at the bottom. But anyway, no one else could for some reason.
Oh, wow.
I had, like a 80-something% yield,
Yeah.
almost 90% yield, and nobody else could even come close to that.
Oh,
I don't
wow.
know why, but it's just the way it was. So that's why I got transferred into research and was able to then work with research scientists, growing special crystals and everything.
Even
under
though you
other
didn't have
conditions.
any background, like a college background or
No.
anything.
I went to school. I went to MIT Knights for a while, and I went to Northeastern Knights, but I never got an actual degree.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, and then when I went to Tycho, I went from a technician to a junior staff scientist to an intermediate staff scientist, and when I left the company, I was a senior staff scientist.
Wow.
So that was just working my way through the company.
And that's different than today. Today you have to have
Oh, I
just
know.
a bachelor's degree
Yeah.
to get your foot in the door. You can't, you could never do that today.
I mean, they would give me a project and tell me, this is what I want you to do research on. I'd have to go, we had our own library in the company.
Mhm.
I'd go to the library and do all the paper research and
Mhm.
everything, and get all the type of work that was done in that area, and I'd make copies of it and all and so forth and so on. And then I would plan what I was going to do for making the thing work.
Mm-hmm.
And had to set up my own lab. I had to order equipment for the lab and plan the whole lab and everything. So, yeah. But like I say, today they'd never let you do that.
Yeah.
Was there a story when you found like platinum on a desk or something?
Oh, when I was leaving the company, it was after a project was over, and I had platinum, because we were growing these oxide crystals, and platinum is okay at a high temperature and oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't break down.
Right.
So we were able to melt these crystals and grow them inside these platinum crucibles. And it was a government contract. And when the government contract was over, I still had all this platinum left over. They were crucibles about maybe this big and maybe this round, but they were really thick, like a quarter
Wow.
inch thick. And after the project was over, I'm working on other stuff, and then I realized I had this. And so I brought it to the person who's in charge of buying things for the company, the purchasing agent, and told him I had this. And he said, after the project was over, we had written it off like it didn't exist anymore. And I don't know why they would do that, because platinum doesn't disappear.
Right, yeah.
It may melt, it may get deformed, but it's still a
It's
hunk
still,
of platinum.
right, yeah.
And so he didn't know what to do with it, but I let him have it. Otherwise, I could have sold it. Man.
Yeah.
I don't
A lot
know.
of money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially since nobody knew it existed.
I know. That's really weird. But anyhow.
Now, what sort of government contracts would you do research for the government about?
We're growing crystals and
Like
trying
what
to grow materials for
Solar.
solar cells and
Mhm.
things like that. But piezoelectric materials.
would, did you do any work for like NASA or the space thing?
Yeah, I did. We worked on some high temperature solar cells
Mm-hmm.
that went onto a manned flight thing that I forget where it went to now, Jupiter probe or something like
Okay.
that. And one of the things we put in there
Mm-hmm.
was from that. Yeah, so that was part of the government contract that we did. The only thing I know is that transitron, right?
Yeah.
Not transitron, at Tycho. We had scientists that were working there that during the Vietnam War they went to Canada.
Oh, they did?
He went to Canada for a while and then came back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wow.
Brian McIntosh was his name. And
Okay,
he, to avoid,
They held his job for him?
No, he was a graduate of MIT, but when it got towards that time, he just
He didn't want to take any chances.
he didn't
Okay,
want to
yeah.
take any chances, so he went to Canada for a while.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't working at Tycho at the time,
Okay.
but then when he came, he
Oh, he
did
came
work
back from
there.
Canada,
He came
okay.
back from Canada. He was working there. Yeah, he was one of my bosses.
So, what were like the, if you remember, like major political issues?
Major political issues? Not really. I wasn't
Mhm.
into politics
Mm-hmm.
much at all. Raising 5 kids.
Well, you paid the Kennedy story.
Paper?
Oh yeah. Did you not vote because?
Yeah, we didn't vote.
Okay. So, the Kennedy story.
Yeah, ask me about the Kennedy story.
Yeah.
Oh, the Kennedy story? Well, before I was even married.
No, we were married.
Oh, we were married.
Yeah, I never
We were
worked
married.
there
We
before
just
we were
married, and she's
Mhm.
working at Transitron. And John Kennedy came through while I was campaigning for president. and he was shaking hands with everyone. And he went to shake hands with my wife, and then he said, "Wait a minute, you're not old enough to vote," and he didn't shake hands with her. She wasn't too happy about that.
If you had voted, I guess you wouldn't have been voting for him then.
Right.
If he'd known that, he wouldn't.
He definitely wouldn't have
Yeah.
shaken hands if he'd known we were non-voters. And you know, the other thing I remember in '62, so when he was assassinated.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a big shock. Yeah, really.
Now, do you remember like the time when he was president as being like better than any other time? I mean, now when you look back, people always say, "Oh, this was Camelot. It was, you know, the best of the best," and blah blah blah. Do you remember
It
looking
might
back
have
now
been
that it was
because
better?
that was the time when I got laid off at Transitron.
Mhm.
It was easy to get a job.
Okay.
You see, so maybe that
So
was the
economically it
best
was
of times,
good, yeah.
and maybe he had spurred a lot of
Mhm.
economic growth,
Mhm.
you know, jobs and things like that through government or whatever, and maybe that was, like I say, I got the job at Tyco, but I applied for 3 places, and the other 2 called me up afterwards
Mhm.
and offered me jobs, so showed it was fairly easy to
Mhm.
get a job
Yeah.
back then, as opposed to now.
Yeah. So, this is an important thing. That can talk about when we were teenagers, and you can get all sorts of stuff about
Stories,
that. Yeah.
Well,
In the 60s and the 70s, it was a turbulent time. There were the younger people were very much anti-establishment, and there was the big drug culture and whatnot. Did that have any impact on your
Your
family
life.
and your kids when you were raising them during that time?
I didn't notice,
Okay.
tell
Certain
you
of
the
them
truth.
smoked pot.
What was that?
Certain of them smoked pot.
Some of them smoked pot.
Okay, some of them just.
But I didn't even know about it.
But you didn't know it at the
Mm.
time.
No, I didn't know it. I mean, she may have known.
Okay. What about drinking? Was that an issue with any of them?
With some of the kids, definitely.
And was that different than when you were growing up? Like when you were a
Not
teenager?
really, not really. I was a designated driver when I was
Okay.
growing up because I didn't drink.
But
And
you
these
didn't
other
drink,
people
but
would
that's what
get
I'm saying.
smashed.
So you didn't drink though.
I didn't drink.
So it was different than that your children were having issues with drinking.
Well, let me
Yeah,
put it
that's
this way.
true.
Yeah, I tried beer when I was,
Okay.
and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
You see, so there was no problem
Yeah.
for me to drink beer because I didn't even like it.
Yeah.
So like I was designated driver, but other guys that I went to parties and stuff
Yeah.
with, they would get smashed. And they'd ask me the next day, did they have fun? Because they couldn't even remember. You
Yeah.
know? So anyways, but so I think it was just as bad then as far as drinking. But you never heard about drugs back then
Okay.
when I was growing up.
But what about
But see, because I was married and with 5 kids, I'm not into that
In the
culture
yeah, well,
type
I'm thinking,
of atmosphere.
I'm thinking about like for your kids. Did you find that they were more rebellious than you would have been as a teenager? Do you think that they did more things that were counter culture than you did at the same
It could
age?
be because I just assumed that they wouldn't
Okay.
because I didn't,
Yeah.
and then I find out they did. You know, like Lisa,
Okay.
walking on the beach and she's with her friends, and next thing I know, she comes home and could almost light a fire from her breath, you know?
Yeah.
That type of thing, you know. And then I think it was here, I think, and they're in the chorale at work, at school, and that's a really nice thing, and then I find that but they smoke pot, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
So, anyways.
Yeah. The chorale was big into drinking too.
So.
I just want to point out
See,
that
I
I
was
was not one of these children. Who
But I was
were-
very naive because I just assumed
He could
because
be
I
naive
didn't do
about
these
me
things.
because.
I didn't figure anyone would
Yeah.
do these things, you know, because the way we brought you up in church and Sunday school and all this, you automatically would do what's right.
In my case, yes, that was true. In the other children's cases, not so much.
Not one single one of them.
Well, then, okay, and also in the 60s and the 70s were the sexual revolution. And did that, like, affect your family at all?
Oh, do we have to go there?
I'm sorry, but you really do, because it's part of history.
It's our history, too. Unfortunately, my son, yes. Actually, both sons.
Yeah.
Both sons were promiscuous, and I didn't realize this at the time either until I find out. And it's like, whoa, you know? Because again, I would not do this.
Yeah.
So I assumed being brought up the same way I was, they wouldn't either. But it didn't turn out that way. Yep.
So that will bring into when did he become a grandfather?
Because that was
Yes,
Yeah.
we gotta get that in.
Yeah. So when did you become a grandfather for the first time?
When did I become a grandfather the first time?
I thought someone was laughing when they were
When my
You
son
were laughing or crying?
got this girl pregnant. And they got married when she was like 8.5, 9 months pregnant. And then I forget what year that was.
Oh, we can look that up. I
But
can figure it out,
anyways.
yeah.
Mary?
Realized.
Mhm.
So I became a grandfather for the first time.
What do you remember about like the moon landing?
What do I remember about it?
What did you think of it? Or
I thought it was pretty impressive, you know, exciting, you know, see it on TV and everything,
We get to stay up late to see it.
right? Yeah. That was something, yeah.
what kind of car did you have when you had your kids?
Oh, what kind of car did I have? I had a 19, I don't even remember the year now. I had a Buick Special
Angie met Linda Roxette's party.
station wagon that Betty's father
You're not
gave
talking
us.
about when she was being married.
And I had a Volvo
Last week, first time.
sedan that I drove to work.
And she
And she used the Buick Special. Sometimes I
birthday party
used
that
that
we
to go to
enjoyed.
work too. But
When we were really little, you had a Beetle.
yeah, when we first married, we had a Beetle, and then we had a Volkswagen bus.
She did.
When we had 5 kids, we needed the bus. Yeah.
We needed the bus, right? And we had a Weimaraner dog. It was interesting to see him in the Beetle in the back of the back seat. There was a little
Yeah.
place where you could put a suitcase, and the Weimaraner was back there.
What else can you do?
So we had a thing on the roof for putting the suitcases
Okay,
yeah.
and stuff.
Did you let the kids drive when they were old enough? Like,
Did I let them drive when they were old enough?
Yes, as soon as they were.
Yeah, but sometimes they would have the car and they were teaching a friend to drive when they shouldn't be. I caught them driving across someone's lawn. That was Lisa, right?
Yeah.
Certainly wasn't Linda.
No, it wasn't me. I was so
No.
good.
Seems
It wasn't Gail. It was
Lisa's
Lisa.
featured prominently in these stories.
Yeah, Lisa gave me a hard time a lot.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, she was the one with went out somewhere and they had the fake
Yeah, she
driver's
stole
license.
my
She
driver's
drove your
license
driver's
and Auntie
license.
Gail's driver's license so they could go to a club. And you can never ever tell the story to Sarah and Anna. You have to promise that you will never tell the story because Auntie Lisa will be furious.
I think Grandma already told them.
Okay. Yeah, they stole my ID and they stole, because Barbara was a brunette, and they stole Auntie Gail's for Lisa. And then they went to a bar.
Yeah.
And then Barbara went home with a guy that she met at the bar.
Oh, I know.
And
We
Lisa
were
comes
really
home,
upset.
and she's like, I lost Barbara!
Fortunately, this guy was not a bad guy.
Yeah.
Could have been absolutely.
But it could have been a horror show if it, you
I'd
know.
like to talk about that one.
I mean, you read about stuff
Yeah.
like that now. It's
Yeah.
like, but it didn't turn out that way. They just went home to his house and watched a movie or something, and then they came
As
back.
far
But
as you
it's like,
know.
As far as we know.
as far as
Yeah.
we know, but hey,
But she did come back, so this was good.
Right. yeah, so we didn't have to report her missing to her parents. yeah.
Young.
The
Grew up in the age of Facebook and stuff.
gas station I
I
got,
mean, like you and Rick, if you
my
had a
gas at
squabble,
it.
you wouldn't
was very
put
nice
the
to
boss
me.
go,
He
you
would,
know, you had a
Yeah.
squabble, you get over it,
allow
you
me
go,
Yeah.
and then you both have your dignity.
to
because
get
no one
gas.
else
Well,
knows.
she doesn't even know like
And
what,
so I
it,
think
like
these people-
how.
It's like,
You were only allowed
I don't really
so many
understand
gallons a
what's
week.
Facebook to check what's on it.
And there was only a certain day of the week you could
These
buy it
people
on
change
too.
their status,
Yeah.
I'm in love
And,
now, single, I'm this, I'm that,
like
going to
odd
the
even
bathroom,
or
eat
whatever
cheese
type of
sandwich,
thing.
you know,
And
it's just-
Right.
You know, that is what I think the whole
one of
world
the
is
interesting
I don't
things
see it
was we were going to one of these family things on New Year's,
Yeah, I
and
mean, I
we
think
were using the
And
Buick
yet,
Special
Holton, and I don't know if you've looked at pictures of
station
him on
wagon,
Facebook.
and we're going up Route 95.
Happiest kid,
and
he's always laughing,
the
always
stupid
smiling. At the
carburetor
party they
float
had
or
with him,
something
he's just
stuck.
delighted in
I mean, I filled up with gas before
Yeah.
we left and everything, so I was all set. Like I said, you could only get like $10 worth or whatever it was. But anyways, I made sure I had enough gas for going up to the family get-together.
No,
Well,
it's
I'm
war.
driving along and I'm looking, and the gas gauge is
My point is,
doing this, and there's black smoke coming out the back of the car. So what on earth is going on? So I pulled under this underpass
children get, you know,
because I think it was raining at the
you know,
time.
get
I
damaged
put the
in a
hood
way.
up. I got a rock and I whacked the
Seemingly trivial
carburetor,
stuff, they were just born that way.
and it
And
freed
some
up the
people, you
the
know,
float that was
a lot of
stuck.
Wow.
success
And then it was
people,
okay, but we
and make up for it.
we get up there, you know, we're almost on empty.
You know, he's always said he's gonna
So,
make crap out of his stuff, how to get big
You know,
enough.
what do you do? I needed more than the $10
To get home,
to
yeah.
get home. So what I did is with the family, I think I got in line, and there's this big long line at the gas station, and I paid $10, and I got the $10 worth of gas. Then I went to the family thing and dropped the family off. Then I went back and got in a different line, did another $10, and I had enough to get home then. But that was the only way I could have done it, otherwise I would have been stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, back then, I mean, during the there were lines. You could only buy gas on like every other day,
Yeah,
and then whenever you went to buy gas, though, there was like 20 cars in line.
yeah. Like I say, fortunately, the one in Warwick, the guy would let me, because he knew I went that long distance to work.
Started thinking about it,
He would let me
that's
in.
where, I mean, you can always.
So even if it wasn't your day, he would let
Yeah.
you buy it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did for a while.
I think I
and
was
then
driving
she
the
would go
Volvo
in
then.
because she said, "I'm not going
But,
anymore. All
yeah,
they do is talk about
he
my
would let
drugs
me in.
and my
Yeah. Now, did you buy preferentially cars then that got good gas mileage because you had to
Back
drive
then,
so
we
far
weren't
to work?
thinking that much about gas mileage,
Okay.
because, I mean, gas was only like $1 something a gallon, you know, it wasn't that much a gallon. I mean, when we first married, for crying out loud, it was probably under $1 a gallon,
Wow.
you know, so that wasn't a big deal.
Mhm.
But, so I got this Volvo, which is a sporty type thing,
Mhm.
but
No, I think that
they
he's got
dual
it.
carbs.
And you know, the house.
But it,
was his
you know,
house,
drove
she-
good and
Mhm.
everything, it was a nice car. So I
I
kept it for a long time, but I went through a lot of cars.
Yeah.
Because driving back and forth after we moved down here, driving back and forth,
That's a long-
you
it was
get
60 miles a
100,000
day, yeah.
miles on a car in no time, and then I get to the point where, is it worth fixing it anymore, or should I just trade it in? So then I trade it in and then do it again, you know?
Yeah.
In other words,
Well, actually, see,
But
it's more complicated than that.
After a while, I
It's
bought a
not
lot of
equity
Subarus,
well,
because I like
that's my point,
Subarus.
you find out what the market value of the house
That's
is.
what
So
you
we went
gotta
from
find out.
Subaru to
They said-
Subaru to
Yeah.
Subaru
If
to
the market
Subaru.
value of the house is the same as.
But I had a
then
Saab
there's no
with a
equity.
seat in the
So
back,
the
remember
money
that?
right there-
I remember that,
Station
yes,
wagon.
yeah,
Rather
yeah.
than a bad investment,
So,
mother made a bad investment.
'cause we
they
had
all
5
invested in
kids,
something that has
so,
no value. So there's no
we had 3,
payoff. It's not like
you know,
Yeah, 'cause
she,
she
2
paid
seats
for
in the
the
front,
addition,
3 in the back.
yeah, but my
And
point
then
is,
we had this seat that popped up in the back where 2 kids could
my
sit
guess
back
is
there.
there is
Ah,
equity
okay.
then.
So we
it's
used
a
that
And they'd
for-
face
$20,000
backwards.
equity.
Mhm.
Face
She spent
backwards,
the
said
money
we
to
used
put it
that
in, now
when
it's
we
worth
went to
20
church
more.
and
But it's
everything,
positive.
bring the whole
So
family.
it's
Right.
all hers, so when you sell it.
That was
she put
another
in
thing that
40,
was
she gets
different
out
back
20,
then,
because
when
put
we were,
addition,
when we
you
were
never get
really
out what's
little.
worth. You get,
No,
you know.
in fact.
They didn't have like rules about seatbelts and everything.
Right.
We used, when we went on vacation to New
So
Hampshire,
she chose to
we
do
would
that.
fight like
It's
who
her
got to
investment. Robin made
sit in the
investment
back of the
house, didn't
station
work out so
wagon,
great
like
for
lie
her.
down, with
The
the
other
suitcases
reason
on
is
a
because
comfortable seat. I mean, on a comfortable, like lie down with a blanket or something and lie down back there and stretch out. Because we didn't have to sit in seats and wear seatbelts or car seats or anything
Right.
like that.
That's true, right.
So that-
They didn't have car seats for the babies. They just would put like a crib like on the seat and let the kid sleep on the seat like that when we drive.
The kids are remarkable, kids are remarkable.
The Watergate problems and the
Okay.
tapes.
And I just tell
Yeah.
them the experience, my brother and, you know.
But
it's-
again, I
it's
don't know a
privilege,
lot,
it's-
you know.
Well, because you didn't vote, so you
No, so I wasn't in, like
Yeah,
I
you know,
said,
it's
we
better
weren't
with
politically
now than
inclined
when
type
it's happier
people,
now.
so that's why I
Mhm.
wasn't
You know,
big on that.
Linda would have been miserable if she was stuck with him.
The
5 years,
Watergate
and
thing,
miserable
I
is-
remember because
Just like Allison's now.
they actually,
unhappy with
at Bible
him.
school, we could never watch TV or anything, but they let us watch TV that
Right,
day.
because
When
of
he
Nixon, when he
resigned, we
resigned,
got,
right.
they turned on the TVs
Yeah.
and we actually watched,
Yeah.
and we got to watch
Yeah,
it, which was
right.
a big deal, because
I
we
mean,
never
he
watched
tried to
TV at Bible
reconcile,
school.
Right.
There's no interest in reconciling, then he
That
had to
is
talk
true.
to a lawyer and figure out. whether-
Oh, that's the other thing we did on vacation, we went to Bible school.
That's right.
And so,
You do that every year?
I mean, I don't know what that.
Uh,
the housing market's turning around.
Kids had to be a certain
Yeah.
age before you could go, it had to be 5, so the younger kids couldn't go,
Mhm.
so I might go with some of them,
Give the
Mhm.
daughters and the mother
But
and.
once everyone was 5, then we did go,
Deal.
as often as possible, that we could afford to.
You know, if they all love it and they all got their connections and they're touching the time, then just give it to them. Oh, she can't qualify.
No, she didn't go.
I think-
Yeah, because I had like 3 weeks vacation, then I had 4 weeks vacation, and at the end I had 5 weeks
My
vacation.
point
That
is,
might work.
I bet that she
You can
would
ask her about
qualify
the
because-
technology,
what do you think that house
if
is
there's
gonna
any
be?
inventions that he
Mortgage on
remembers
the
from
house
when
is-
we
No,
were
I guess
kids.
they've got 2 mortgages.
Do you remember
That was
any
why they couldn't
inventions
refinance.
From when-
from when she was a
Do I have
kid?
any inventions? I have
That were
about
new.
5 patents
She said,
downstairs,
"You can't do that because if you've got 2 mortgages."
and they were all in crystal growth,
Mhm.
patents on crystal growth. I even have
I don't think she's incorrect about that.
A
Let's say your house
chapter
is
in a
worth
book
200,000, you have $100,000
that
flat
I
mortgage,
co-wrote with
you have
somebody.
$20,000.
It's on closed-shaped crystal growth book. But there's
Okay,
Larry
you
Harris
refinance
and
the
myself.
100,000.
Yeah, you
She
didn't
might be
ask
right,
me
you
about
can't do
the solar
20,
cells.
because
That was
that
a big
didn't qualify for the program, but your 100
thing that he
mortgage
did in
you
his
still
job.
refinance.
that
it's still
the
the first
crystal
mortgage
growth
on the house,
was
so
for
it's
solar
probably still be a
cells or
second
whatever.
mortgage.
You might want to talk about
My
solar
guess is she's
energy
right,
or
you can't wrap
something.
it all at once, maybe what she was hoping to do.
What
Which is
about
they
it?
want. That's
What?
what they're
What
planning
about
to do.
it?
At least that's what she said.
Well, originally he was growing the
But I'm just
crystals for,
thinking-
Was that
um,
that's why she was so
transistors.
mad at Jennifer, because
Right.
but then when you were at mobile, they became, when you were at Tyco, they became mobile.
If they're having trouble qualifying.
Mobile
for
Solar
mortgage,
Energy
too,
Corporation,
she
yeah.
couldn't do it.
In
And
fact, she said she has a better
I
credit rating than he
grew
does.
the first
Oh.
3/8
I mean,
inch
I'm
tube,
thinking that, interest
crystal-
rates are so low now.
crystalline silicon tube.
Mhm.
I did it
You
at
get
night,
$100,000
everyone else has
mortgage
gone
for
home. I finally
$500,000.
got it going, I'm running around trying to find someone to show it to, and I finally found Ed Molesky, the vice president, and showed him, and he was all happy, because that was the start of what became a full-fledged business of just growing crystals, but it went from 3/8 inch to 1.5 tube to nonagons to decagons, you know? that type of thing.
And that was, Mobile owned it, but they were trying to get out of
Their mother's going
the
to
oil, well, trying to diversify out of oil, where
Right.
they were
See,
doing
trying
solar energy.
right.
Yeah,
And they ended up investing over $200 million through the time that I worked in that area. And that's when the company finally ended up closing, was they were trying to make a business decision whether to go bigger
Mhm.
and make this big, huge factory where it will go commercial.
Mhm.
And they ran all the numbers and so forth and came up with it wasn't worthwhile at the time to
Mhm.
do it.
Why are you?
And we didn't know that, but we had an off-site meeting at this big place, and they told us how they were closing down the company.
No, I didn't. I know what I'm doing.
And we were all escorted back to our offices and allowed to take our personal stuff out.
And that was the end,
And
huh?
that was the end, yeah. That was,
Allison gets everything.
yep,
Because she's already written off the older building.
1994.
Now, the
Yeah,
solar
but that,
cells, they never got the cost of them low enough so that they could compete with conventional electricity. Is that
Right.
what it was?
can't that not work out?
Yes,
They were
I
trying to
can.
get it below $1 a watt,
Getting
and
up
they
from a chair.
kept,
But the will
Yeah,
thing
having
and that thing
problems
isn't
getting
really
it.
Rob's concern.
they thought by
So
mass
that's gonna happen
production
with-
and
No, no,
increasing
it's too
in
bad.
efficiency
Like,
and
but I'm thinking, whatever the house
doing all those
condition
type of
was
things,
living
they would
in,
get the cost
It
down.
was
But-
sellable. She was living in it, they could have
Yeah.
sold it, you know?
So when they
You,
closed the company down, they sold it to a German company, which took it over and ran it commercially for a while.
Mhm.
But even they, I don't know what they did. They ended up closing also
She's putting in more than
about
26
3 years
hours
ago.
and stuff
Oh.
that you did.
So, but it's still big in Germany. There's a lot of solar
Oh, there is?
energy
Okay, yeah.
in Germany. Now, I don't know if they're using our technology in Germany or not,
Mhm.
because when we were growing the crystals and then they're using a laser to cut them into 4x4s and everything, they were shipping a lot of this stuff
To Germany?
to Germany, yeah.
Well, then,
They're doing bird carving.
maybe she wouldn't have come.
There was a guy at work he was,
That could be something
what do you call him?
in the English language.
He didn't work at the company per se.
The consultant?
He's a contract
Okay.
worker. And every lunchtime I would see him sitting at his desk and he's with a knife and he's carving this bird nest. And I says, hey, what are you doing? Because I had started on my own before that. Remember, I did the
You made a
little.
chain.
I made no, but I did the little mallards.
Oh, the half ones.
And I made the half one,
Mhm.
then the full sized little mallards, and I did a bufflehead. But I just, couldn't get beyond a certain point. And so I asked him,
You made her bird?
what was he doing? He said he was carving, and he's taking lessons for someone, Richard Palmer, in Middlebury, Mass. And so I said, will he take on any more students? I said, because I'd like to learn too. And he said he might. And I heard that there was a show in Connecticut at the time, and Richard Palmer was going to be there,
Mhm.
showing some of
Yeah.
his birds and selling some of his birds there. So I went down and I saw him and I asked him if he would take me on as a student, and he said, yeah. So I took lessons from him for 3.5 years until he didn't do it anymore. He got into, unfortunately, problem with cocaine.
Oh.
Anyhow, so he stopped doing bird carving. I mean, he was still doing bird carving, but he wasn't teaching
Mhm.
anymore. And he still does bird
So you're
carving
not
and
very-
sells them and everything.
Mhm.
But,
So
so
anyway, after this whole thing with
I
You know what you
did
could
my
say?
first bird with him, and I did a miniature red-tailed hawk that I did for David Pride, Michael Pride wanted to do it. And he says usually when I start students, I start out with a chickadee.
Yeah.
He says, and you want to start with a red tail.
You know, I don't know that.
I says, yeah, 'cause somebody wants one. And so he helped me, learn how to do it and everything. And then
Thinking.
I did the kestrel that's there
Oh, in the
on that picture.
Okay, yeah.
in that picture, and I did a bunch of the other different ones. And he talked me into that guy that I told you was doing it at work.
Mhm.
And he and I got to be fairly good friends, and we would go to bird shows around the country. And
What's the story with
I would
that?
enter competition, and I ended up winning best in show in novice. Then I won best in show in intermediate,
Wow.
and then I moved up the professional level.
Mhm.
But I've never won best in show in the professional level. But I've won blue ribbons and stuff. So with taking lessons for 3.5 years, it helped me, move up and get better and better at it. So that was a hobby I do, and I still do it.
Mhm.
Okay.